screwed up in reverse.
I keep telling you, we gotta give up this preoccupation with keeping people alive or we'll never get out of here.
Actually, sir, he's with the CIA and he's on a case at this very moment.
I see.
MASH wasn't just a television series. It was a cultural phenomenon that blended humor, drama, and humanity into a show unlike any other. One of MASH's most beloved characters was Radar O'Reilly, brought to life by Gary Burghoff. With his kind-hearted innocence and charisma, Radar became the emotional core of the 4077 unit. For years, rumors flew, creative tensions, personal struggles, or even burnout. Now, decades later, Burghoff finally opens up about the true reason he left MASH and what really happened behind the scenes. From the moment MASH began airing, Radar O'Reilly, his mix of humor, innocence, and dependability, endeared him to viewers, who saw him as a central figure of the 4077 unit. But while Radar was a critical part of the show's success, the expectations placed on Gary Burghoff as the actor behind the character were overwhelming. Behind the scenes, the pressure mounted over time. Radar's popularity required Burghoff to maintain a very specific image both on and off the set. He often described the emotional toll of playing such a well-loved character. In an interview with the Television Academy Foundation, Burghoff revealed, "Audiences think you have to be the person they see on screen. The truth is, Radar was a better person than I'll ever be, and trying to live up to him was hard." His portrayal had to carry the same warmth week after week, which left little room for error or personal struggles. The demands of portraying a perfect character became isolating for Burghoff. Unlike many of his co-stars, whose characters had flaws that allowed for a more dynamic range, Radar remained consistently sweet and untainted, a role that required immense emotional energy to sustain. This left Burghoff feeling creatively stifled at times. One producer later reflected that Radar's role was so sentimental it didn't allow Gary the flexibility to explore a more complex performance. For Burghoff, this growing pressure to meet audience expectations only added to his eventual decision to step away from the role. As Radar O'Reilly charmed audiences week after week, Gary Burghoff was privately struggling to cope with challenges in his personal life. The grueling filming schedule of MASH often left little time for family or personal matters, something that weighed heavily on Burghoff as the seasons went on. At the time, he was married with a young daughter and found it increasingly difficult to balance the demands of his career with his responsibilities as a husband and father. In an interview with Good Morning America in the mid-1980s, Burghoff opened up about how this imbalance affected him. He explained, "I was giving my all on set, but I didn't have anything left for the people I cared about most." The show's success meant intense hours and little downtime, which left him feeling stretched thin between his commitments to his career and to his family. Beyond the demands of filming, Burghoff also struggled with feelings of burnout. Playing Radar required him to embody a constant sense of optimism and warmth, even during moments when he personally felt far from it. This emotional disconnect took a toll on his well-being over the years. A member of the production crew later recalled that Burghoff often seemed isolated on set, absorbed in his work and rarely participating in the camaraderie that the rest of the cast shared. For Burghoff, these challenges became impossible to ignore, pushing him toward the difficult decision to leave the show. While many of his co-stars thrived in the intense environment of MASH, Burghoff's personal struggles added another layer of difficulty, making it clear that stepping back was the only way to take care of himself and his family. As Gary Burghoff's personal struggles mounted, the decision to leave MASH became increasingly inevitable, but it wasn't an easy choice. By season 8, the pressure and emotional toll had reached a breaking point. While Burghoff's love for the show and his character was clear, he knew he couldn't continue without sacrificing important aspects of his life. The production team reportedly made efforts to keep him on board, even pitching ideas for a more flexible schedule to allow him time to address his personal challenges. But Burghoff ultimately felt it would only delay the inevitable. In an emotional reflection during an interview with CBS Sunday Morning, Burghoff admitted, "It wasn't a decision I wanted to make, but one I needed to make. You can't give your best on screen if your real life is falling apart behind the scenes." His departure was a sensitive topic for the rest of the cast as well. Loretta Swit, who played Margaret "Hot Lips" Houlihan, later remarked in a conversation with the Television Academy Foundation, "Nobody wanted him to leave, but we all understood why. Gary gave so much of himself to that character. At some point, he had to put himself first." Ultimately, Burghoff worked closely with the producers to ensure Radar's farewell was meaningful and fitting for such a beloved character. The team agreed that Radar's departure wouldn't just serve the storyline but also honor the significance of Burghoff's 8 years on the show. It was a bittersweet moment for the entire cast and crew as they realized they were saying goodbye to both a character and a colleague who had been integral to MASH's success. Radar O'Reilly's departure marked one of the most poignant moments in MASH history, and for Gary Burghoff, his final scenes carried a weight that extended far beyond the script. The two-part episode, Goodbye, Radar, offered fans a heartfelt farewell to the character that represented innocence and kindness in the chaos of war. But behind the scenes, the emotions were just as raw. The decision to write Radar out of the show wasn't just a creative choice. It was a deeply personal culmination of Burghoff's struggles and his growing need to step away. His co-stars described the filming of his final scenes as an emotional experience for everyone involved. According to Jamie Farr, who played Klinger, the mood on set during Burghoff's last day was somber but supportive. He reflected in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, "No one wanted Gary to leave, but we all understood it. That made his goodbye even harder." Burghoff's last scenes showcased Radar's growth from a naive young soldier into a capable man who stayed true to his good-hearted nature. It was a bittersweet goodbye for fans and cast alike. Loretta Swit later shared in an interview that Burghoff's departure felt like losing a limb because of the central role Radar had played in the story and on set. She added, "Gary embodied something pure in the midst of all the chaos. That sense of loss, I think, came through on screen." For Burghoff, the final scenes were difficult but necessary. He reportedly spent significant time working with the writers to ensure Radar's farewell felt authentic while remaining consistent with the character's essence. The result was a departure that resonated deeply, Radar leaving to care for his family, a parallel to Burghoff's real-life decision to prioritize his personal life over professional obligations. After the cameras stopped rolling, the cast and crew came together to celebrate Burghoff's contributions to the show. But underneath the smiles and congratulations, there was a shared sense that an era had ended with Radar's departure. After leaving MASH, Gary Burghoff largely stepped out of the Hollywood spotlight. Although he continued to act occasionally, including a brief return as Radar in the spin-off series After MASH and the TV movie Walter, he spent much of his time focusing on his personal life. This shift allowed him to prioritize his family, which had been a key reason for his departure from the show in the first place. Burghoff also explored other creative outlets, including painting. His wildlife art gained recognition, and he often spoke about how this quieter, more introspective work gave him a sense of peace that he had struggled to find while working in the high-pressure world of television. Reflecting on this transition, Burghoff explained in a 2011 interview with Closer Weekly, "It wasn't about fame for me, it never was. I had to make a choice that allowed me to be the kind of father and husband I wanted to be, and I'll never regret that." Despite the move away from acting, fans and colleagues alike have continued to associate Burghoff with the character of Radar O'Reilly. While this connection was once a source of pressure for him, over the years, he's come to appreciate the lasting impact of his work on the show. Speaking about his time on MASH in an interview with the Television Academy Foundation, he reflected, "I'm proud of Radar. He represented hope in the worst of circumstances, and people still tell me how much that meant to them." Gary Burghoff's story is one of stepping back to move forward. By leaving MASH, he was able to find the balance he needed in his personal life, even if it meant walking away from a cultural phenomenon. Decades later, his decision continues to resonate as a reminder of the importance of prioritizing mental health and family over career ambitions. And while Burghoff's time as Radar came to an end, the character remains an enduring symbol of optimism for fans across generations. Nuchet.